to the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kim?
Hi, good evening.
Mr. Cass?
Here.
Mr. Capello?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Lure?
Here.
Mrs. Gould will not be with us. Mrs. Wagner?
Here. Okay, we have no need for an executive session tonight, so if we could please pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all. We just can't do that all together.
No, that was terrible.
That was absolutely, I think, our worst.
We may have to have people take turns. We may have to have a representative be the pledger.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
I like that idea.
You don't
That
want
is
me
a great
doing
idea. We'll skip you, Dave. Okay, so first up is our special presentation by Dr. Cullis on our community survey results.
That screen should be shared with you. So these are the results. Now, we took the survey, we put the survey out, and it was the first 3 weeks of school. So this is the data that we were able to collect and start making improvement plans upon. And I'll show you the actual data as soon as we get that screen up. Okay. Let's see. Cindy, are you there?
I'm going to put it on now.
Okay, great.
Hey, this is Don. I can't hear anything.
We're waiting, Don, for the presentation.
Okay, I got it up on my computer.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Sorry about that. I'm here. I'll get that presentation up right now.
Thank you.
No problem. I just have to share my screen. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay. So we did take this. This is as the results really are. We're taking the first 3 weeks in advance. Okay, so we had 633 responses, which represents 38% of our student population. The breakout on the left side of the screen is really the school response. And then right next to it, you can see the grade level response. Overall, it's fairly consistent. You know, we had our greatest response from Lakeview at just under 42%, just about 30% at Riverview, and 20-something percent at Valley View. Cindy, should I put mine up?
No, Sandy, I'll have it up in a second.
Okay. Overall, the schools were about the same, except for pre-K. We had around 10, 11% for every grade level, and that was pretty consistent K through 8. Pre-K was a small number, but there's only a small number in that program comparison.
Okay, do you see it now?
Let me see.
I do.
I do, Cindy.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can go ahead and advance that slide, but if you can just look at the percentages from pre-K on by color, you can look at that. It's about 12 to 13%. Okay, just slightly down, please. Slightly down. Nope. Up. Okay, there we go. Nope. Up, up, up. I can't see the questions.
Okay, there you go. That one or up the other way?
One up. We skipped a slide.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So overall, how would we rate our first 3 weeks of distance learning? So the majority of the respondents felt like it was excellent or good, and then the smaller amount, around 20%, were average or below average, where that was their experience in the first 3 weeks. We're quite a ways into it now, and it would be interesting to see how we're doing now that we've overcome a lot of the logistical issues of how to get on and how to take assessments, how to log into a Zoom, what the issues may be at this point. So in the first 3 weeks, most of the issues were right around the logistical pieces of the program. How responsive have the teachers and staff been, and when further assistance was needed? And at that time, it was very responsive. And this was the first 3 weeks. Majority of people were very responsive, and only a small amount, very few, if any, said non-responsive or not applicable. Please advance. Now, how much time was your child spending on the daily assignments? So we had a large number of students who were working between 4 to 6 hours or under. But we still had a significant number that were falling at 7 or 8, and even some students that were spending 9 hours or more. So looking at that piece of data, even though it wasn't a large population that responded to the survey, we needed to take a further look at that and say, okay, what plans do we need to put into place? But certainly our intent would not be for students to be working 7 to 9 hours a day on their schoolwork, because it probably means that they're having some difficulty and need more assistance. And if we're having 9% or 10% of the students respondents saying that, there's probably a large number or a significant number out there that did not respond that are also struggling. So we wanted to make sure, what plans are we going to put into place? Where are they struggling in particular? What percentage of the work requires support from a family member to complete? Almost all of the work required support, right? So there was a large number, 25% were saying 90 to 100% needed significant amount of help, almost all, and a less than that same amount said none of the work required support. So we needed more support than there were far the number of respondents saying they needed support than were saying they didn't need support. So again, we were looking at those two questions saying, what is it that we really need? Because we have a large number of students who are spending a lot of time on this and also needing a lot of support from family members. So where is it they actually need the support? And that's where we decided, we made in our plans where we decided to address those issues. But it came out of this particular slide of where is it that we need assistance. Okay, you can advance the slide. How would they rate their experience in using the technology from home to complete assignments? So 46% responded excellent, and another almost 42%. We're talking about 88% of them said that they were able to use the technology successfully and that their experience was either good or excellent. Another 11% were average, and only a small amount were below average. So we felt that the technology was going well at that time. And how responsive when there was an issue, when people couldn't get onto Zoom or couldn't get a password for a particular program, what was our responsiveness? And if you look at the next chart, majority of them said not applicable. So either they had no issues and so they didn't contact us, but the few that had contacted us said very responsive or moderately responsive. Very few said non-responsive. So it seems that our technology issues, at least in the first 3 weeks, were small, and the technology was going well for families. Overall, how would you rate your child's engagement with completing daily assignments and activities? In those first weeks, highly engaged or moderately engaged, and only a small amount, under 10%, were minimally or not engaged. Again, that was 3 weeks in. We're now a large number past that we have to keep in mind that we have to keep things fresh. We need to try to find ways to be more engaging. We need to keep the ideas of the activities, to vary them, because otherwise it is going to get very stale for students. But I do think that they now understand how to get on to the live Zooms or Google Meets, and now it's a matter of just changing it up enough to keep them engaged. Next slide. So based upon those survey questions, we came up with 3 general areas or key points of areas that needed work. And based on those areas, we came up with specific plans. So one of the first key points was that our Google Classroom organization. Complaints or the concerns that parents had were a lot to do with organization. The Google Classroom, there is a streaming function where all of the classroom lessons are placed in one location, and you really have to fish through and try to find when the due dates are, when was it assigned, when is this one, what's the priority on some of these assignments. And it's easy for them to get missed. One of the things that we put into place was to use, instead of the general stream, to use the classroom tabs for organization. So that if a parent links on to Google Classroom, they can go right to the tab and there's a list of the assignments and the due dates. We did host 2 Google Classroom sessions for parents, and we had well over 250 participants between those that had logged on, and just to get some information about how to run the Google Classroom. And I think that probably helped. Now, those occurred after the survey. So in response, we did create some parent workshops. We also created an optional assignments section for extra work. So the enrichment, whether it's the games, activities, the online programs that we subscribe to, things for Flex Friday, could be under that link rather than on the required classroom tabs of assignments. So students, if they finished their work and they were trying some of the enrichment, or what did they do on Fridays, that would be the tab that they would use. We wanted to make sure our reading tools were available, because that was a comment that came out from the survey, that what electronic and digital reading tools do we have? And we subscribed to quite a few. So we wanted to make those available, and we emailed out that information of what tools we use. Some special education accommodations as needed. Not every student was in need of these, but we did find that there was a need for executive functioning assistance, and that teachers would be individualizing daily schedules. So those Zoom or Google Meet schedules would be created on a checklist and sent to those students over the weekly check-ins with the either instructional aide or special education teacher, to make sure that they're being able to get on to all the programs and the meets that they need to do. Next slide. The second area was, the key point was recorded and live instruction. In the first 3 weeks, we had significant live instruction in the middle school or recorded instruction, but not as much at the elementary school. After that 3-week period, we did increase the number of Google Meets, the Google Zooms, and other just videotaped lessons at all of the grade levels. So at this point, we require that everyone do at least 1 live meet, although that has been more for check-ins and not as much for new instruction. The new instruction, we've been utilizing short videos or mini lessons, and then having a Meet or Zoom lesson afterwards to talk to students about what their questions are. So the instruction has been videotaped so that students would be able to go back a number of times. If they did not understand the material, parents could then watch the video and see if they could help when their students were struggling as well. We increased it. One of the special education accommodations was to increase the live sessions with instructional aides and support specialists. So in addition to the regular general education teacher in their class, there would be additional check-ins with instructional aides and support specialists as per IEPs and as needed with those students. We are more flexible with our due dates, and we have more open timelines for our work completion, so that if students and parents are competing for the computers, we are more flexible with when that would be due, so that we don't say it's due at 10 o'clock and maybe that's not the opportunity that the student has the computer because they're sharing with a parent, someone else in the home. So we're trying to be more flexible with due dates on assignments and not penalizing students for the due dates. Okay, next slide. Our final key point of the general point was communication with families. With all of the day-to-day changes, I think communication was of big concern to families, just wanting to know. At that point, we didn't even know if we were going to be coming back this school year. So people were very hungry for information, and we needed to make sure that we were creating a conduit for consistent messages home. So we did send updates via email, Google Classroom, and through live video sessions. We reviewed the procedures of how to turn in the work, how to reach out with questions and concerns. We wanted to make sure that of how their students were going to be graded, so how feedback was going to be given at all grade levels, the elementary level, as also the grading in the middle school. We did host those Google Classroom parent workshops, the Google Classroom parent workshops, and then we have weekly updates from the principals as well as Dr. Forte. So those have been going out as things have been developing, and more information that we get, we try to roll it out to parents as quickly as possible. But there have been a lot of developments since the survey. It may be of interest to conduct another survey to see how parents are doing at this point. But with this initial data, we at least could figure out what are some steps that we needed to take in those first, after those first 3 weeks, what did we need to do differently? And it really was improving our communication, improving the amount of time that we were having live instruction, that the students were really craving the live instruction and live connection with students, with their peers, and also to make sure that they knew exactly who to contact for assistance. So I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Dr. Cullis.
Sandy, this is Don.
Hi, Don.
First of all, congratulations to everybody involved with this online learning. And the survey indicates that right out of the gate here, an excellent job was done in setting this up. I know it's very difficult, very short timelines to put this in place, but I think the fact that you got a 38% response rate was good. I've done business surveys. I do them for soccer, and if you get 10%, you're happy. But this 38% response was very good, and I think the ratings are very good. And you've keyed in on these opportunity areas where there's some room for improvement. So that's terrific. The only it's not so much a question, but that after you do some studying on what needs to be done in these opportunity areas, be interested to see what adjustments are going to be made, so we can hopefully get the scores up a little bit. But I think all things considered, it's a very good response, positive response from the parents.
Thank you. One point that I had a great conversation with Mr. Anderson, and one of the things that we really, looking at the data, was just, again, those numbers of students that were saying they need a lot of help and time. And we need to make sure that even though it's 30%, 8% is a good number, that we know that there are students out there struggling. And although this survey data doesn't give us every student who may be struggling, it does give us at least a trend. And there wasn't one particular group that was struggling more than another group. Like there wasn't a subgroup that we could really pick out and say, this is the group, or this is the school that's struggling more than the other. But since the survey was originally done, we have identified students that are struggling. The parents are telling us that these are students that are spending an enormous amount of time working, or that we're not able to help anymore at this time. It's just the amount of work where we need help getting the student on. And we're trying to provide.
The percent I referred to was the overall response rate.
Right.
No, I understand that some of the kids need more help and are putting a lot of time into it. And I'm just wondering if that's, obviously we're not replicating the classroom at home. So you wonder if it's the fact that if they were in the class with the teacher in front of them, they'd raise their hand, or the teacher could come over with them and give them a few pointers to get them moving forward. That may be part of the solution. More FaceTime with the teachers with the online or learning, just they can't be in the class physically.
Mhm.
Dr. Cullis, this is James.
Hi, James.
Hi. First of all, I just wanted to announce to everyone that Mrs. Wagner had to step away for a brief moment. She should be returning in about 15 minutes, at most 30 minutes. So I'll be stepping in to cover this meeting. Dr. Cullis, you mentioned that you will probably be looking to do a second survey, or you were interested in what results of a second survey might look like. Are there any plans to have a second survey sent out to the families of the district?
We are going to discuss that tomorrow at our admin team meeting because it is farther in. And now, since we did the survey, we thought we might be going back this year. So I think that we're farther in. And I do think that many of the issues that came out of this first survey have been resolved. I mean, there still are continuing, you can always continue to communicate better and so forth. But there may be other issues that between now and the end, or June 17th, that we need to address. So it may be a different survey or a shortened survey. It may be the exact same survey and send it out again to see if our responses are different, or if we can get more parents to participate. I think it would be a good idea to do.
I agree. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Are there any other board members that have any questions for Dr. Cullis at this point?
Hey,
No,
James,
thank you.
it's Mike, James. Hey,
Go ahead,
Dr.
Mr.
Cullis, how are you?
Good.
So thanks for putting it together and kind of taking a look at where we are. I think that, to me, there's phases of this flexible learning. And I think that this was a great synopsis and a great way to look at, okay, we implemented this really quickly. We had a lot. I will tell you, I was really impressed with, I don't think you talked about one of the key points being organization of the Google Classrooms. One of the things that you noticed didn't come up, which I was really impressed with, was the students knew Google Classroom really well. Certainly my kids, and I've heard almost no one complain that their kids really didn't understand Google Classroom or know it. So clearly it's being used in the school, in the classroom setting prior to going to this setting. So that was really great to see, and I think really helped get it started quickly. And I agree. I think that this was a great way to look at kind of our first step into it. I think that just like everything, this whole distance learning and all of us being home, whether it's distance learning or distance working, is evolving. And I truly think that there's going to be, now that we know we're going to be in this for the rest of the school year, I think it is important to continue to make sure and see if there's opportunities for us to improve, because it's clearly kind of different now than it was a few weeks ago. And I think that, the need for family members being there, probably has that changed? I'm not sure. But it'll be interesting to see too, because I'm not sure with families' work situations changing, the availability of a family member to help and support may change also. Mm-hmm. So I think all of that stuff, as we adapt, it'll be really important. So I don't know whether it's another survey or what it might be. I would certainly leave it up to you and the administration to kind of figure out next steps and how do we continue to learn to adapt. And I definitely think you hit the two areas that I looked at when I saw that survey results that were concerning to me, which was the percentage of students that were 7 hours or more per day. And then secondarily, or maybe not secondarily, but also was the percentage of students that were needing family support. So it sounds like you guys are really trying to address that and see what we can do to continue to provide additional resources. So thank you for you and the entire administration for taking it on and really trying to come up with some creative ways to continue to improve. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else from the board would like to contribute or ask questions?
Sandy, this is Dino. How are you?
Good.
Good. Let me just repeat out what the other board members have said. Thank you all for taking this on. And again, I think we were all impressed with the overall results of the survey. Looking ahead to a potential second survey, the only thing I might want to suggest is if we could look at or maybe include some questions that look at the social, emotional, mental health aspects of the students. I mean, we've done a lot of work on that in the real world school, you know, when we were all in school together. So I'm just wondering, kind of going forward virtually, how we kind of, you know, make sure that that's still happening. I know our counselors are still having sessions, but I guess I just want to see if there's a way to maybe kind of try to gauge if there are ways we can kind of engage on those aspects moving forward, especially the longer term this goes.
I think that's a great point. I will definitely make note, and we should add some questions on that. I think that at that moment when we first did the survey, we were thinking logistics, and now certainly social, emotional, and mental health is weighing on our mind. So I will definitely include that.
Great, thank you.
If there are no further questions from any board members, I will continue down the agenda, but I do want to remind the public that there will be an open public discussion. So that is the time where you could ask your questions to either Dr. Cullis or Dr. Forte or even Damaris. So please type your name and address in the chat box. But without further ado, Dr. Forte, superintendent comments.
Hello, everybody. Wow, it's my first time speaking tonight. This is great. So our field trip reimbursements have been moving along very well. As a matter of fact, we received 90% or more of the funds back from the vendors, and the parents have been receiving their reimbursements. If anybody is having any questions regarding reimbursement, they should contact the school principal or school office to make sure that their information is correct, and we'll make sure we get them their reimbursement. We are giving a full reimbursement for trips. We did the same thing for the graduation gowns at Valley View. The gowns cost $20. We did send out a message to parents for a survey on whether or not they would like to keep the gown for $20 or receive a refund. The company would not allow us to cancel some of them. They either had to cancel the whole order or keep the whole order. So we decided to do it this way, and there were several people that preferred to have a refund. So we feel comfortable that we did the right thing for them. And the people who want the gown will still get it if they like. The extracurricular and stipends for stipend positions, we typically approve those things at the end of the year, but we are going to put that on hold for next year for the 2021 school year. All end of year activities as of right now are going to be virtual. That's according to the guidance we're receiving from the NJDOE. Right now we're going to plan on using a service supported by the Valley View PTA to do a virtual graduation for Valley View, and Riverview and Lakeview will be doing something in-house with in-house personnel. Also, if some other sort of live end of year celebrations can be done, we will investigate that, look at it, and decide what we can do, and we will provide more information to the public as we receive that. That's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Dr. Forte. And Dr. Cullis, back to you with the assistant superintendent's comments.
Just one. This Wednesday, May 20th, is our 5th grade to 6th grade placement virtual meeting. So all parents had been sent an email through Messenger. If you have not received that, we are going to send another one out, but if you have not, please just reach out to the building and check the website because that is happening. And that particular session is for all of the course placement information. So what courses will they take and how do we place them? The parent orientation to the middle school is on May 27th. So the following Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Both of those sessions are at 6 p.m. So the 20th is the course placement at 6 p.m. and the May 27th is the parent orientation for 5th graders to 6th at 6 p.m. This concludes the assistant superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. And Damaris, business administrator's comments?
There's no comments. Thank you.
Okay, and I have 8 p.m. So Damaris, I'm going to open public discussions. So if anyone from the public who has any questions or comments for the administration or the board, now is the time to, this will be your first opportunity to speak and ask questions. We'll give it a minute to see if there's anyone that wants to ask a question or speak. All right. Well, at this point, there will be a second opportunity to ask questions or speak. So I will close this this portion of open public discussion at 8:01 p.m. Mr. Lohr, if you want to take us through old business actions to be taken.
I will be happy to. I would like to move under old business items A, B, and C as a block. These consist of the Treasurer of School Monies and Board Secretary report from April of this year under A. Under B are the education reports, report of student enrollment, and report of the health office from April of this year. And finally, under C are the minutes from the work session and executive session of April 6th and the regular session of April 27th.
Second.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
This is Don speaking. I do have a comment for the future under the report of the health office. This may be something that may come down from the Department of Education at some point, but when we return to school, do we want to have a category to track COVID-19 absenteeism as a health issue? We have flu on there right now, but I would think this would be something we'd want to track when we eventually get back into the school buildings.
That's a great question. Dr. Forte, do you have any thoughts or questions or comments on that?
I think you're right, Don. I'm sure we're going to have to track that.
Okay. And I hope all our students are healthy, but you wonder if anybody's contracted it. Any of our students have contracted it.
I haven't received any reports of our students.
Yeah.
We had reports of parents, family members of staff members, but no students were reported to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. That does really bring up a great point. I mean, do we have to change any policies in the future in case students are quarantined? Maybe they're still healthy, but will it affect their absentee record and affect their ability to graduate? So perhaps not a question that needs to be answered today, but some food for thought moving forward. Any other questions for or comments on old business? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lohr,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner is not here. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, so we'll move on to the next section, new business action to be taken on personnel, section A. Mr. Anderson, if you can run us through that, please.
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move. There's nothing in item 1, so I'll skip that, but I'll move items 1 and 2 as a block. That includes some leave of absences for our staff members.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there an item 3?
Yeah, it looks like there's items 2 and 3. And was this where the addendum was?
It's 2 and
No,
3.
2 and 3.
It's
What
only
did I say?
2 of them. It's
Sorry,
only.
You said 1 and 2.
Yeah, Mike,
Sorry,
did you mean 2 and 3?
There was nothing. Sorry, I meant there was nothing in 1, so I'm moving 2 and 3 as a block. Sorry.
Okay,
Do I have
great.
a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lohr.
Yes, I heard Mr. Lohr as well.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Well, in that case, roll call, please.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Since Mrs. Gould is not here, Mr. Capello, could you run us through Section B, Instruction and Program, please?
Certainly. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. If there are no objections under instruction and program, I would like to move items 1 and 2 as a block. This includes two workshop expenses and also the revised COVID plan for May 2020 that we are required to submit to the NJDOE.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lure.
Any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you to Steve and the administration for putting together the revised COVID plan that the Department of Education required. I was on a legislative call last weekend with school member board from across the state, and they were some of them were bemoaning this process that they were behind getting this to the state. They looked at it as a fairly onerous process, but I just want to commend Steve and the team for knocking this out and getting it all together within the time frame. So thank you.
I echo Dino's commendations. Thank you, Dr. Forte, Dr. Collis, and the rest of the team and administration. Any other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, roll call, please.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Mr. Lohr, if you don't mind, could you take us through Section C, policy revisions, please?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
I would like to move under Finance, Section D, Finance.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lohr.
Sorry, Mr. It's under policy.
Section C, policy revisions.
Whoops. Sorry, I skipped a section. I would like to move item 1 under policy. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 policies on their second reading and adoption, and 4 policies for first reading. Some of these include both the policy and the regulation.
Do we have this? Great, thank you. Mr. Anderson? Any questions or comments? In that case, roll call, please.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. For this next section, is there any objections or is there any kind of things that I would be breaking if I went through finance section? Damaris or Steve?
You should be able to move it as a block.
Great. In that case, then, as the chair for finance, I'd like to move finance as a block, sections 1 through 6, as seen in the agenda. Yeah, if there's no questions, or I'll just let everyone read it at this point. Sorry.
I would like to second, but I think the question that James had, Damaris, wasn't about the item being moved. It was about the Robert's Rules of Order reference to him currently acting as the president and making a motion.
Well, technically he can make the motion, but you might have a point. In that case, if somebody wants to move it again, that would be okay as well, just to be safe.
This is Don. I'm on the finance committee. I will move it.
And we also we have C7 too on the addendum.
Okay, so I'm going to move as a block items 1 through 7 under finance. And you have that in front of you here. We have the closed checklist. We have district bid award letters from educational services, number 2. Number 3 is one of my favorites, that we're going to provide milk for the students, and Cremo Land Dairy has been awarded the proposal to provide milk to the students. And as you can see there, what they are: a half pint of chocolate fat-free, half a pint of 1% white milk, and a half a pint of fat-free milk. And it should be noted that parents can request a whole milk for their kids if they deem that's necessary for their health and welfare. Number 4 was the approval of the submission of the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act for the fiscal year 2020 per public law. And number 5, the board accepted donation of customized face masks for all 8th grade Valley View students from Susan Banks, owner of Faith and Bagor. She's a great merchant in town, has been very generous to the town over the years, and a very initiatives that we've done. And 6 is the board accepted the donation in the amount of $50 from Craig Frenicola for the Riverview School General Supplies. And I don't have number 7 in front of me, but you could read it if you have it.
Number 7 is the board approved the attached technology plan for the Riverview Annex at a cost of $141,639.47.
There you go.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr.
I figured out how to use the mute button fast.
Questions or comments?
Hey, James, I've got a couple of questions, and I apologize on the check questions off the bat, because I thought I had sent them earlier and had not, so apologize, but they're big checks, so I think that Damaris or Steve may be able to answer them quickly. The first one was on check 9310 for American, I think it was roof repair. Can anybody help me understand what that was for?
Just bear with me.
It was $14,500, just for a reference.
Okay. That is for the roof at the bus garage. It needed to be replaced.
Got it. Okay. And then the other question was about check 9374 to St. Mary's for the snow removal. Steve, can you remind me how that's written in the lease? Because obviously we had no snow.
So it started December 1st. There was a couple storms. It happened on the weekend. The deal was they're going to pay for snow removal, and we're going to reimburse them up to $5,000. That was the deal in the lease we have now.
Okay. Got it. And then the final question I have was on, well, actually, I do want to say, echo Don's thanks to Susan Banks from Faith and Bagora. She has been working tirelessly making face masks for everybody across the town and beyond, and graciously has offered to do these customized face masks for all the graduating classes throughout the town. So appreciate that. But I had a question on number 7. Well, 2 questions on it. First of all, what is the plan to get the broadband service over to the building? Because I didn't see that included on that plan.
Cindy, you want to chime in on that one?
Sure. So the current plan is to get a Verizon Fios line, which wasn't in place when we first bought the Board of Education building across the street. They didn't have Fios. So right now we will be getting a Fios business line, which will connect back through a VPN connection to Riverview, which will of course then go over to Valley View. And also the students, we will have a firewall there, but the students and regular internet like that will go out over the internet line. It will not travel back to the schools to go out. it still will be filtered the same as all the other schools. It will just be traversing directly out to the internet rather than going back to the other schools. So in essence, if the internet was down at Valley View and Riverview and Lakeview, the annex may actually still be up. So it has a separate, the VPN is only for phones and authentication when the staff needs to log in.
Okay, great. I guess because I think we bounced around a few times on this, right? At one point we were talking about running fiber across the street. Then we were talking about wirelessly transferring the bandwidth from Riverview, and correct me, I'm not a technology guy, so probably saying that wrong, but it sounds like this may be the cheapest and easiest way to do it, huh?
The whole reason we talked about those other things was because FiOS would not, even though it was like at Steve's house the street over, it would not come to Riverview and it would not go to the Board of Ed. I got a letter saying that they were in the area, so we jumped on it and we can get a business line there. So depending upon, what our plans are with school in September, we'll have to see, what our internet requirements will be. But for now, yes, that 1 gig should manage all of this just fine.
Okay, great.
And it's great because it's not more traffic going out over the Valley View circuit now. It's almost like, nothing else is being added.
Yep. Okay, that's awesome. Thanks for the update. I guess, Dr. Forte, my final question is on number 7. There was a conversation previously about, and I think it was in relation to finances, that depending on what happens with state aid, that there is a chance that we may have to pull the plug on opening that building based upon the staff costs. Is that still any possibility?
See, I think we presented what we called the COVID ready budget, where we were able to reallocate and find $1 million to give us a cushion into next year. And from that point on, we decided to move forward, and that was with the blessing of the board, at least of the committee. So we are progressing like the building's opening, including hiring new staff and all the other things that are involved. But that is a conversation, and this is the right time to bring it up if that's not the case. But I was under the assumption that that the board members and I know our administrative team was ready to move forward.
Well, I think the comment came from you, so that's why I guess I was asking, was you had made the comment that depending on how much of a cut we got, and this was probably prior to kind of relooking and moving some things forward to the left and looking at potential savings we may have from the virtual learning. So if you're telling me that that's not on the list of possibilities as to what we would potentially cut, then I'm okay. I just don't want to go spend $140,000 if we may not move into that building.
Yeah, I get that, and those are all good points. It's things that we thought about. I think we're moving down the direction that we're going to open the building, and obviously, one of the things, and I know Dino has been bringing it up, is we really won't know as much information as we'd like to know until pretty close to the start of the next school year. So I think we have to progress with we're opening it up now. If the state aid cut was catastrophic, meaning like they're cutting all of our state aid, I think everything would have to go back on the table. But from what we've been told and the advice we've been made, it's not that it would be all of our aid, but it would be some of it. And some of it, remember, we get $1.7 million. We feel pretty good about that $1 million cushion. And Damaris and I are working on growing that as much as possible as well. So yeah, we're progressing like the building's opening and that we're moving on. We're moving forward. We're hiring the staff and doing the rest of the construction, including the technology.
Okay. And just to clarify, and Dr. Forte, please keep me honest, but just for clarification to the public, that $1 million on the COVID ready budget was not found money. It wasn't like that money was sitting there before. That's a combination of cutting certain things, moving things to the left, meaning pulling it in from next year's budget to this year's budget, some savings we're seeing based upon not having transportation on the roads, as well as kind of using reserves. So it's just a matter of looking at things differently and trying to come up with a way to preserve as much as we can if we get cut. I just want to make sure people didn't think there was like an extra $1 million in the budget we just approved recently. That's all.
Yeah, Mike, that's 100%. It's a split about 400,000 in the first category is like pre-buy, around 400,000 in the second quarter category, which was some savings and some the additional money that the board voted to add into the budget, things like that, and reallocating things that were in the budget to reserves. And then the last pot of money was some cuts that we were able to make, or not even cuts so much as putting them on hold. We may approve it later if we find out our aid isn't cut as much as we expect. And then maybe we can add them later. So really those are kind of on hold for now, but that's exactly right. It wasn't like found money, extra money we had laying around. It was just some creative thinking on Damaris's part.
Got it. And then can I just ask one more final question on number 7, more just detail. I noticed that the agenda has 141, but the actual document we have has that number, but then has total after grant. So I just want to make sure we've got the correct amount. And and Damaris, maybe you could just explain to me, does that come back to us, that E-rate grant, or how does that work?
The E-rate grant will reduce the amount of money that we intended to spend. So if we intended to spend 150 and we had a $5,000 E-rate, we will only be paying 140,000. So right now we do not know exactly how much E-rate we're going to get. It's a yearly amount, and it's based on costs and how much we purchase. And again, we are this amount that we approving tonight is the actual amount, and anything above and beyond will be refunded to those lines later on.
Okay, so that amount in the attachment was the estimated E-rate grant we potentially may get.
We think that's the minimum amount we're going to get. So that's why I put that, really just for your use, that we're going to get some money back.
Got it. Yeah, and just for the public, since they may not see the document, so on the agenda it's $141,639.47. The estimated E-rate grant back potentially would be just over $4,000, about $4,100. So the total after the grant, which is estimated to be $137,497. So just so everybody knows, hopefully that's great. Thank you for the clarification.
And it's usually a lot more, not a lot more, but it's more than that. We estimate low. So when we do receive the funds, at least we have a cushion.
Fantastic. Is there anyone else from the board that has questions or comments in finance? Oh, before, actually, I did want to jump in. I do think I see a clerical error with regards to the addendum. The addendum states that finance is section C. However, on the agenda, finance is section D, letter D. So that's just something that we just have to note for
we'll know that
the board.
in the minutes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Anyone else with questions or comments to finance, section D? If there are no other further questions or comments, I will hand it back over to Mrs. Wagner. Mrs. Wagner, did you just rejoin us?
Yes, I did, Mr. Kim. Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Are we at policy revisions?
We need to roll call.
We are at section D, finance. We just went through the motion and the second, and we had a discussion about the finance section. And so we are about to go into roll call unless you needed some further clarification or a better understanding of finance.
No, I think I am good right now. Thank you very much. If nobody has any other questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
No on number 3, yes on the rest.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner,
Yes. Okay. We are on to policy revisions now. Is that right?
No, we would go to section E, operations, Mr. Cass.
Okay.
Okay, under number 1, transportation, we don't have anything to move tonight. On number 2, buildings and grounds, there's a resolution that the board approved the discarding of the 2 soccer goals at the Valley View Middle School field and also the middle school gym bleachers.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cass?
Are we scrapping those, or are we just throwing them away? I mean, the goals are made of aluminum, right?
We're scrapping.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Steve,
Okay.
are those not usable?
The soccer goals are really in bad shape. They're actually dangerous. They're like held together. They're shot.
Okay. All right, good. Just want to make sure there wasn't an opportunity to see if somebody else needed them, but thank you.
Yeah, so could we take them up to the that scrap dealer up in Rockaway?
We might be able to do that.
I mean, might be able to make a little money on it. I don't know if it's cost beneficial to haul them up there, or they may even come down and pick them up. Otherwise, you had the metal dumpster down at recycling there. They could go in there.
We're going to scrap them. We'll take care of it.
Okay, great.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Okay, we are at good of the cause, committee reports, correspondences. Before we get to the listed discussion item, does anybody have anything else?
I had a question about ESY. I know last we spoke, the indication from the state was there's not going to be anything obviously live until at least June 30, but have we gotten any other indication of what ESY might look like this summer, virtual, live, combination? Basically anything at all.
Right now, it looks like it's going to have to be virtual.
Okay.
And we are looking at doing an enhanced version of ESY that would include kids that are not classified special ed, do some other things.
Okay. How do you, I mean, I don't know how far you've gotten in that process. I mean, so it'd be, I guess, a process of where people could enroll their kids. I mean, I guess that would, we'd have to figure that out.
Yeah, it would come, originally it would come from the teachers and recommendations, kids that might need some extra help, kids that are falling behind in any way, or kids that are basic skills or have reading specialists, all the other things that we have. And then if we have the room and the money, we could offer it for other kids too, that parents might want them to do it, because we're not sure what it's going to be like, how many people are going to actually want to take advantage of it. We're going to see. We're going to try to put it together. We have a special committee that's working on that.
It's actually interesting because I actually think virtual, you could get the opposite effect with that, where people are just want to unplug for a little while, which will be really interesting next year when those kids come back, where they may have actually gone to ESY if it was in person. Obviously, a whole lot of what ifs, and I know you guys are thinking through all that, and as much as you can, because a lot of that we just don't know. But I think it could have an opposite effect of kids that maybe would have normally come, not come.
You're right, Mike, and we actually talked about that in our committee because we are looking at it being more of almost like a academic enrichment summer fun camp, like the social emotional piece with it, because we realize that some of the kids that probably need to come haven't wanted to come now. So they're certainly not going to want to come in the summer. So the whole feel of it is, if it's on virtual, is going to have a different flavor. You know, it has to be almost more of a summer camp feel, you know? So
Yep.
we're even having like our specialists, you know, different art and music and some other things that we traditionally don't offer are being considered. So.
Great.
Steve, sorry, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll just ask Steve. Steve, thank you for providing us with the updates on Riverview Annex and the Valley View Field. Do you see any kind of issues coming up, or do you think we're going to be right on track, on schedule for at least Riverview Annex opening in September, as well as the Valley View on schedule?
I think the Riverview Annex is ahead of schedule. It's doing really well. The only things that are going to slow down a little bit, like there's an inspection called for tomorrow, so they haven't worked for a couple of days. But once the inspection is done tomorrow, they're going to be able to close up some of the projects. They're expecting to be done in about a month, pretty much with everything. I would assume there's going to be some minor things left open, like things that are hard to get, some materials like the bulletproof film and things like that. But other than that, I'm figuring that's going to be done pretty quick.
That's great news. And what about Valley View Field then? Looks like the field demo will begin on May 25th.
Yeah, so it's moving along. I put a few pictures in that shared document folder we have. The grass was already treated and is dying. The clay has been ripped up already. There was some sidewalks that had to be removed. The bleachers have been removed. There were some benches that are removed. And on Wednesday, the fence is being taken down. The wall has been demoed, and it actually has a couple courses already installed. So yeah, that's moving along as well.
Yeah, I looked at the wall. The wall looks great. It's no longer going to be a wood, one of those treated wood walls. It'll be a stone wall. So it looks fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Hey, Laura, if I could just make a quick comment about graduation. I know there's been some direction from the state, and just like much of the information the state has provided throughout the pandemic, the information has been gray at best. However, following the state police letter to the DOE and carbon copying all the school districts, the state police, as well as the governor, provided a little bit more guidance on what they felt was at least allowed. And it seems like there may be some opportunities for us to do beyond just a virtual graduation. I am extremely cognizant of the safety, and I am not advocating for any group in-person graduation. However, I think there's some creative ways to be able to celebrate our graduates a little bit more than just a virtual graduation and still keep it safe. It would probably require some creativity and work on our part. But I would just personally think if we have the ability to do it in a safe way, and allowable by the state, and it looks like that there are some options, then I would highly encourage that we look at it, and hopefully we can come up with a way to celebrate their graduation as best we can, and like I said, as safe as possible.
Thanks, Mike. I know that I was off the meeting for a little while, so I apologize. I know that Dr. Forte and I had spoken about this earlier today. Dr. Forte, I'm not familiar with what you said during your presentation, so I apologize. Did you want to address Mike's statement?
Sure. we've been talking about a lot of options. Obviously, right now the plans are moving forward with the virtual graduation in all 3 schools. But I have had several conversations, and we're going to continue them tomorrow with the principals on what types of things we could do and possible options that we could do going forward. And we will keep the public aware as soon as we know. But we're not just done with this. We're going to keep seeing what is available and what's possible for us to do and what the principals think they can do.
Thank you. I think when it comes to creativity and imagination and what they can do, the administration and the staff have proven to be great examples. So I'm sure that they will come up with something as long as it is abiding by the government's laws. We will find a way to honor the students. Does anybody have anything else? I just wanted to say quickly that we were supposed to meet tonight after our meeting in an executive session, but just the board for the CSA evaluation. We don't have all the evaluations in yet. So I would just urge you to do that. And as soon as they're all complete, I'll be in touch with everyone. Dr. Forte, did you want to discuss reopening of schools for the 2021 year? Reopening of buildings, I should say.
Well, right now, I don't have much, but I added that to the agenda through August. And the only thing I'd like to say about it now is that we are working on some committees, in-house committees, with our team to come up with plans for what it will look like when we come back. And we will discuss this in discussion items going forward. There's a section for me, Sandy, and Damaris to report. And this is the first one. So the first one's really just a report that we're going to report this.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Laura, this is James. If I may ask Dr. Forte a question. Steve, first of all, I want to thank you for all the articles that you have been supplying to us, either through your shared drive or the other drives. I know that there's a bunch like the Department of Education. Actually, there was one article that talked about elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. I should have asked this during finance, so I apologize. Is this something that we are going to apply for to try to get some funding from the state or a grant from the state?
Damaris, would you mind answering that?
Sure. Mr. Kim, during tonight's agenda, there was a resolution on the finance number 4. That is the grant that you are referring to. It is the Coronavirus Aid Relief in Economic Security Act, CARES Act, and we did apply for it. The district will be receiving $27,667, and we'll be utilizing that most likely with summer extended school year programs and other needed supplies.
Great. Thank you, Damaris. I apologize. I was looking for the URSER acronym, and I didn't see that in number 4, so I guess I didn't correlate the two, so forgive me.
It's okay.
But yeah, Dr. Forte, going back to my question about the reopenings, I appreciate you supplying with all these articles and everything else. Do you feel that the state is going to provide some guidance with regards to how to reopen in September, as well as any other changes to the regulations and the laws that say that we have to, virtual learning is not counted? Because I know that they made an exception for this year, but moving forward, I know I made a comment during our last meeting. Is there any updates with regards to that?
There really haven't been any updates on what the state is going to allow. We do need that, though. We need information from the state prior to coming up with our final plan. So the answer is, I hope we get guidance, and hopefully we get it sooner than later. But they will have to do something to help us because, like you said before, these days only count when there's a state of emergency. So the question is going to be whether or not that will be lifted in September.
Then, Dino, do you think this is something we should bring to school boards then, perhaps?
From an advocacy point of view, in terms of our legislative connections, yeah, I mean, it's a discussion that the committee had kind of in theory last Saturday. But yeah, absolutely, I think we should bring these concerns. Steve, you had submitted, or you gave us that CDC diagram, right? That kind of had kind of broad outlines for reopening. It's kind of a yes/no chart, as I recall.
So there was the CDC one is a little older than the Maryland one. The Maryland one's more recent. The CDC one came out like probably a month before.
Right. My question, the reason I asked the question, and the reason I'm kind of tagging off what James said, is if there are things, and it certainly looks like there are going to be things that are going to be broadly recommended, like temperature checks for people coming in the building, sanitizing equipment. There are things that, like the PPE early on, that may be very hard for us to get once these are all kind of totally formulated and everybody's scrambling for the same materials. I'm just saying, I think we need to think about that. We need to think about things that we know we're going to need. We
already ordered all this stuff on there.
Okay.
But we don't have it in our hands, though. We ordered it.
But we're already putting ourselves into the pipeline to get that stuff.
Yep. Jessica Seidel is our head nurse. She's been coordinating that with the other nurses, came up with a list of things. Damaris already purchased all of it, and we keeping it on our list for FEMA because we're expecting to get some reimbursement for this too.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we received 90% of that supplies today.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay.
So that included some air purifiers for the nurses' offices. It included PPE. It included more of the backpack sprayers that sanitize the building with some electrostatic material that's OSHA approved. Also included those thermometers. So like you said, some of the stuff is very hard to get, and we may not have all of it yet. But we put the order in a while ago, so we've been working with vendors that say they have it. So we're hoping to get it pretty soon.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Wagner, I think you're on mute.
Still muted.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, John, Laura seems to be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Don.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, apparently I don't have a good connection. So I'm trying to open the meeting for public comments, the second public comments section. I'm showing a time of 8:44. If you have a comment or question for the board, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask us or type your question in the chat section on the right-hand side of your screen. And we're just going to give everybody a minute here, if you don't mind. Okay, I am not seeing anybody with any comments. Nobody has come forward, so we're going to close the public comment section at 8:45.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Second.
Is that Mr. Cass?
Mr. Lure.
No.
That was somebody else, but I'll take credit for it.
That was me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:45.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.
Cindy, too. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, all.